The glass doors of Morrison Tech Solutions reflected the gray Seattle morning as Elena Martinez pushed her cleaning cart through the lobby at 6:47 a.m. She had exactly 13 minutes before the first wave of employees would arrive, their expensive shoes clicking against the marble floors she'd just polished to a mirror shine. The building smelled of lemon disinfectant and the faint aroma of fresh coffee from the executive lounge on the 20th floor. Elena was 42 years old, though the early mornings and late nights made her feel older. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her navy blue custodial uniform hung loosely on her small frame. She'd worn the same size since arriving in Seattle 15 years ago, with nothing but a suitcase and a dream that had long since faded into the routine of survival. The elevator dinged softly as she rode up to the executive floor. This was her favorite part of the building to clean, not because it was easier, but because it was quieter. Up here, she could think. She could remember who she used to be before life had stripped away her choices one by one. She began with the conference room, wiping down the long mahogany table where decisions worth millions were made daily. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Space Needle stood proud against the awakening sky. Elena paused for just a moment, allowing herself to admire the view that these executives took for granted every single day. The sound of voices in the hallway made her freeze. It was too early for anyone to be here. She quickly moved her cart to the side, making herself small and invisible, the way she'd learned to do over the years. Two men entered the conference room, both wearing suits that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The younger one, maybe 35, had perfectly styled blonde hair and the kind of confident swagger that came from never having heard the word no. His name tag read Brandon Fletcher, Senior Vice President. The older gentleman, silver-haired and distinguished, was Robert Morrison, the company's COO and son of the founder. Elena had cleaned his office countless times but had never actually spoken to him. Brandon barely glanced at Elena before turning to Robert. "We're interviewing candidates for the new operations director position today. First one should be here in about an hour." Robert nodded, setting down his leather briefcase. "Make sure we find someone with real vision. Father built this company from nothing. We need someone who understands that kind of drive." Elena continued wiping down the far end of the table, trying to remain invisible. But Brandon's phone rang, and his voice grew animated as he paced the room. "Babe, I told you after I get this promotion I'll have more time. Just close the deal with the Singapore office first." He laughed, a sound without real warmth. "Trust me, by next quarter I'll practically be running this place." Robert's expression tightened slightly, but he said nothing. Elena noticed these small things. Years of invisibility had made her an excellent observer of human nature. As the men left the conference room, Brandon's shoulder knocked against Elena's cart, sending a bottle of cleaning solution rolling across the floor. He didn't stop, didn't apologize, didn't even break his stride. To him, she simply didn't exist. Elena bent down to retrieve the bottle, her knees protesting slightly. She was used to this. In 15 years of cleaning offices, she'd become a ghost. People held private conversations in front of her, cried after bad meetings while she emptied their trash cans, celebrated promotions while she vacuumed around their feet. She was furniture. She was nobody. But what they didn't know, what nobody in this building knew, was that Elena Martinez wasn't just a janitor. The universe had a funny way of hiding truth in plain sight, and sometimes the most invisible person in the room was actually the one holding all the cards. She finished the conference room and moved down the hallway toward the executive offices. As she cleaned, she thought about the interview that would take place in a few hours. She thought about Brandon Fletcher's ambition, his careless cruelty, his assumption that he could climb over anyone to get what he wanted. She thought about all the Brandon Fletchers she'd encountered in her life, men who measured worth by the price of a suit and the title on a business card. Elena pushed her cart into the janitor's closet and locked the door behind her. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text. "I'll be there for the interviews. Make sure everything is ready." Then she peeled off her custodial uniform, revealing a crisp white blouse underneath. From her bag, she pulled out a tailored black blazer and a pencil skirt. She let down her hair, applied subtle makeup, and slipped on a pair of elegant heels. In 5 minutes, Elena Martinez, the janitor, disappeared completely. In her place stood someone entirely different. At 9 a.m. sharp, Brandon Fletcher sat at the head of the conference table, reviewing resumes with the confidence of someone who believed he already owned the room. Robert Morrison sat beside him, reading glasses perched on his nose as he studied the candidates' qualifications. The first two interviews had been unremarkable. Qualified people, certainly, but lacking the spark Morrison tech needed. Brandon had dismissed both with barely concealed impatience, checking his Rolex every few minutes. Sarah Chen, the HR director, poked her head through the door. The next candidate is here. Her name is Elena Martinez. Brandon didn't even look up from his phone. Martinez? Send her in, I guess. The door opened, and Elena walked in wearing her blazer and heels, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She carried a leather portfolio and moved with quiet confidence. Brandon's eyes traveled from her shoes to her face, and his expression shifted into something between amusement and disdain. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. So, Martinez. He drew out her last name with a slight smirk. Tell us about your experience in operations management. Elena sat down gracefully, meeting his gaze directly. I've been working in operations for 15 years, primarily in tech companies. I understand systems, people, and how to make both work efficiently. Brandon interrupted before she could continue. 15 years? Really? He glanced at her resume. Says here you've been in Seattle that whole time. That's interesting because I don't see any major companies listed here. Where exactly have you been working? Morrison Tech Solutions, among others. His eyebrow raised mockingly. Morrison Tech? Really? Because I've been here 7 years and I've never seen you. He looked at Robert with a conspiratorial grin. Have you ever seen her, Robert? Robert studied Elena carefully, his expression unreadable. I can't say that I have. Brandon leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. Look, I'm going to be straight with you because I respect honesty. This position requires someone who understands corporate culture, someone who can walk into a boardroom and command respect. He gestured vaguely at her. No offense, but you don't exactly scream executive presence. What did you do here exactly? File papers? Answer phones? Elena's face remained perfectly calm, but something flickered in her eyes. I maintained operations, made sure everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. Brandon laughed. A sharp, cruel sound. That's a nice way of saying you were support staff. Listen, sweetheart, there's nothing wrong with that kind of work. Society needs people to do the basic jobs. But this role? This is for someone who's been in the trenches of real business. Someone who's earned their stripes in the corporate world. He stood up, clearly considering the interview over. I think we're done here. Sarah will show you out. Elena remained seated, her hands folded calmly on the table. Actually, she said softly, I'd like to finish this conversation. Brandon's smile turned icy. There's really nothing more to discuss. We need someone with actual executive experience, not someone who's been doing clerical work for 15 years. He moved toward the door, clearly expecting her to follow. Elena stood slowly, smoothing her skirt. Before I go, I'd like to clarify something about my role here. Brandon sighed dramatically. Look, I don't mean to be harsh, but I'm a straight shooter. This company was built on excellence. My grandfather started Morrison Tech in his garage, and we've grown into a $2 billion corporation. We can't afford to take chances on people who don't have proven track records at this level. Robert Morrison finally spoke, his voice measured. Brandon let her finish. Elena reached into her portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper, placing it on the table. You're right about one thing, Mr. Fletcher. This company was built on excellence. But you're wrong about who built it. Brandon glanced at the paper, confusion crossing his face. What is this? That's the original incorporation document from 1994. If you look at the founder's signature, you'll notice the name isn't Morrison. It's Martinez. Elena Catherine Martinez. The room went completely silent. Robert Morrison removed his reading glasses slowly, his eyes widening. Brandon laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. Everyone knows James Morrison founded this company. with my capital and my technology. Elena's voice remained steady, but now it carried weight. James was my business partner. When I needed to step away for personal reasons in 2010, we made an arrangement. He would manage public operations while I maintained ownership through a trust. The Martinez Foundation. Perhaps you've seen that name on the quarterly reports you've been reviewing for your promotion. Brandon's face had gone pale. This is impossible. You're a janitor. I've seen you cleaning bathrooms. Elena walked to the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. For the past 6 months, I've been working undercover in my own company. I wanted to see how it really operates when the owner isn't watching. I wanted to understand my employees' lives, their struggles, their treatment. She turned back to face them, and what I found was enlightening. I've watched managers like you, Mr. Fletcher, treat custodial staff like they're invisible. I've seen you knock over cleaning carts without apologizing. I've heard you mock the cafeteria workers' accents. I've witnessed you take credit for your team's ideas in meetings. Robert Morrison stood up abruptly. Elena, I had no idea. Your father told us you'd moved to Europe. My father died 5 years ago, Robert, and I've been right here the whole time. If you're still watching and want to see how this story unfolds, hit that subscribe button. Sometimes the person you underestimate is exactly the one holding your future in their hands. Brandon's phone slipped from his hand, clattering on the marble floor. Brandon's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. His carefully constructed confidence had evaporated, leaving behind a man who suddenly looked very small in his expensive suit. Robert Morrison sank back into his chair, his distinguished composure cracking. Elena, I swear I didn't know. Your father said you wanted privacy, that you'd moved on to other ventures. We've been running this company trying to honor his legacy. And you've done well, Robert. Elena's voice softened slightly. The numbers are strong. But numbers don't tell the whole story, do they? She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. For the past 6 months, I've been documenting everything. Not just what I witnessed, but what other employees shared with me when they thought I was just another janitor they could trust. She swiped through images. Here's Maria from housekeeping. She's been here 12 years. Last month, Mr. Fletcher denied her request for 2 days off to attend her daughter's college graduation because it conflicted with a client dinner. A dinner he didn't even attend because he had a golf tournament. Brandon found his voice, though it trembled. That's taken out of context. There were business reasons. Elena continued scrolling. Here's David from IT. He submitted an innovative security protocol that could have saved the company millions. You presented it to the board as your own idea. He got nothing. You got a $50,000 bonus. That's not how it happened. Brandon's voice rose defensively. I have the email chain, Brandon. I have everything. Elena set her phone down. But here's what troubles me most. She walked closer to him. It's not just the cruelty or the theft of credit. It's the waste. You're so focused on climbing that you've forgotten why we're here. This company was built to innovate, to create technology that helps people. Instead, you've turned your department into a political battlefield where only survivors matter. Robert cleared his throat. What do you want to do, Elena? Should I call security? No. Elena looked directly at Brandon. I want to give Mr. Fletcher a choice. He can resign today with a severance package and a neutral reference. Or he can stay and work his way back up from an entry-level position, learning what it actually means to build something rather than just take credit for it. Brandon's face flushed red. You can't do this. I have a contract. I'll sue. You'll lose. Elena's voice was steel wrapped in silk. But more importantly, you'll lose something else. Your reputation. Every company in this industry will know exactly who you are and what you did. She paused. Or you can leave quietly, learn from this, and maybe become the person you've been pretending to be. The conference room felt like it had shrunk. Brandon looked at Robert, desperately seeking an ally, but Robert's expression was unreadable. Brandon's hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the conference table. His perfectly styled hair now looked disheveled, as if he'd been running his fingers through it repeatedly. The swagger that had defined him just 30 minutes ago had completely disappeared. I'll resign. His voice was barely above a whisper. Just give me the severance package and let me leave. Elena nodded slowly. Sarah will have the papers ready within the hour. You'll have 3 months' salary and benefits. Use that time wisely, Mr. Fletcher. Figure out who you want to be. Brandon gathered his things with shaking hands, avoiding eye contact with both Elena and Robert. As he reached the door, Elena spoke again. Mr. Fletcher. He turned, his face a mixture of humiliation and residual anger. I genuinely hope you learn from this. You have skills. You're intelligent. But intelligence without empathy is just cruelty with a college degree. The world has enough of that already. Brandon left without another word, the door closing softly behind him. Robert Morrison stood up, his expression a complicated mix of shame and admiration. Elena, I don't know what to say. I've been part of this problem. I saw how he treated people and I looked the other way because the numbers were good. That's why I came back. Robert. Elena walked to the window again, her silhouette framed by the Seattle skyline. When my father got sick, I had to choose between being here and being with him. I chose him and I'd make that choice again. But I trusted him to protect what we built together, and I trusted you to maintain our values. We failed you. Not entirely. The company is still standing. The technology is still revolutionary. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that businesses are made of people, not just profit margins. She turned to face him. I want to change that. Starting today. Robert nodded. What do you need from me? Your honesty, your experience, and your commitment to doing better. Elena returned to the table, pulling out a folder. I've been developing a new corporate structure. Fair wages for all employees, not just executives. Profit-sharing programs. Mental health support. Paid family leave that actually means something. She slid the folder across to him. I need someone I can trust to help implement this. Someone who knows this company inside and out. Robert opened the folder, scanning the pages with growing interest. This is comprehensive. It's going to cost millions to implement. We have millions. And we'll make more when people actually want to work here, when they're invested in our success because we're invested in theirs. Elena smiled for the first time. My father used to say that a company is only as strong as the person who feels the least valued. We've been measuring strength all wrong. Robert extended his hand. I'm in. Whatever you need. Elena shook his hand firmly. Then let's get to work. We have a company to rebuild. 18 months later, the same conference room looked different in ways both subtle and profound. The furniture was the same, the view unchanged, but the energy had transformed completely. Sunlight streamed through the windows on a bright Seattle morning, illuminating faces that looked genuinely engaged rather than merely present. Elena stood at the head of the table, no longer hiding behind a cleaning cart or a carefully maintained anonymity. Her hair was shorter now, styled professionally, and she wore a charcoal suit that spoke of authority earned rather than assumed. Around the table sat her leadership team, including Robert Morrison, who had proven himself invaluable during the company's transformation. Maria Chun, formerly from housekeeping and now the director of employee relations, presented the quarterly satisfaction reports. Employee retention is up 42%. Exit interviews show that people are leaving for career advancement, not workplace dissatisfaction. We've become a destination company again. David Park from IT, now heading the innovation division, added his report. The security protocol we implemented last year has been licensed to 6 major corporations. Revenue from that alone has exceeded projections by 30%. And we have 17 new patents pending, all developed by team members who previously felt their ideas didn't matter. Elena smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. This is what happens when people feel valued, when they know their voice matters regardless of their job title. Robert leaned forward. We've also been approached by 3 business schools wanting to study our transformation model. Harvard Business Review wants to do a feature article. Only if we can ensure it focuses on the team, not just me. Elena was firm on this point. This wasn't one person's achievement. This was hundreds of people choosing to believe that work could be different. After the meeting ended, Elena found herself alone in the conference room once again. She walked to the window, looking out at the Space Needle, remembering the morning she'd stood in this same spot wearing a custodial uniform, invisible to everyone who mattered. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Maria. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. You changed my daughter's life by changing mine." Elena typed back quickly. "You were never invisible. I just helped people open their eyes." She thought about Brandon Fletcher occasionally. She'd heard through industry contacts that he was working at a nonprofit now, managing operations for a homeless shelter. No corner office, no executive perks, just hard work helping people. Maybe he'd learned something after all. Maybe everyone deserved a second chance to become better. The glass doors she'd once pushed a cleaning cart through now opened automatically as she walked toward them, employees greeting her by name, not with fear but with respect earned through genuine care. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If the story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below telling us what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support means everything, and remember that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Always choose kindness.